All right, Joseph.
Wow.
Good. That's Phases by Phazel. What'd you think of it?
No, that was lit. I had a little mixture of both of them.
The amethyst and the sapphire. That was pretty good.
Yeah.
Okay, so, we're going to have just some conversation about stances between heterosexual and homosexual males, different perspectives. I want to know about your journey, you know what I'm saying? How you came out, how you feel about, the politics and the people that's against everything that y'all got going, and also I have some questions of my own. So let's start off with just how you start at the beginning of the journey. You know what I'm saying? The beginning of the journey. So, how did you know that you were gay, and how did you come out that you were gay?
So I knew that I was gay probably around 12 or 13. If I remember correctly, I think I just started looking at me and was like, all right, it's something about that. And I'm like, and I always liked, when I was younger, I considered myself bisexual for the longest, which I think a lot of males do when they first are trying to explore their sexuality, because it's kind of like taboo to be like, you just come out and say that you're gay at such a young age. So
you gotta try it first.
Sometimes and then I have some friends too that's like they never ventured towards women, never been attracted to it, but I was. And then at some point it just shifted. And as far as me coming out, it's weird because I never really like came out per se. Folks always gave me like the label because I was short or smartest, youngest in the class, and be like, oh, you, and I was a nerd. I like anime. I would be in the back of the classroom doing hand signs and stuff. So folks was like, oh, you gay, and I was like, I don't even know what that means. And then one day I just was like, well, if you know, you know, and if not, it really ain't none of your business. And then probably around like my 20th birthday, 20th going into 21, and I was like, these things that I'm thinking are my own thoughts, so like I gotta unlearn this stuff. All these negative connotations around being gay and being in the LGBTQ community, and then just started that path and journey to loving myself and learning who I was and really being authentically me and living in that truth.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Take a little sip there.
Okay.
So, what are some of the misconceptions that straight people like myself, I put myself in that category, what are some misconceptions that we may have of a gay man when we see one? Because I know, like me, I'm comfortable because like you came in, you was cool, you know what I'm saying? Like I can talk and I can have a conversation with a gay man, but I know a lot of niggas that cannot. You know what I'm saying? So what are some of the common misconceptions that people have or have expressed towards you that you just like, dude, I ain't really even, I'm not on your dick like that. You know what I'm saying?
One of them is that like all men be like, all like straight men usually be like, oh, you just trying to get on. I'm like, fam, I'm not even looking at you. But like, in context, I'm originally from Gary too, so like I grew up in the hood, like straight, just like that. So it was not like any privilege that I had come for. So I always had straight guy friends growing up. Don't have as many as now that I came to realize, but because a lot of it as I came more into myself, it would be like, oh, you trying to hit on me. I would send like, I'm a positive person, so I would send my friends good morning messages. And it wouldn't just be like my straight like male friends, but also like my friends that are women and just like my family and stuff. And I would have some people be like, hey bro, cool out with that. And I'm like, because I told you to have a terrific Tuesday. But like, and sometimes I kind of get it, but for me, it's like, if you are comfortable in yourself, then you shouldn't have any reason to perceive if I haven't straight. I'm very direct and I believe in radical transparency. So if I'm hitting on you, you're going to know I'm hitting on you because I'm going to be direct and straightforward about it. But a lot of straight men think that all gay men are trying to hit on them. That's one that I've dealt with. Another one is kind of the misconception too that being a black gay man that, you know, I'm supposed to be black first and then gay, when blackness is not a monolith and intersectionality exists, and a lot of people just don't know what intersectionality is, or how to really
expand on that.
Yeah, so intersectionality are the intersections between how a person identifies. Okay. So I am black. I'm black and gay. I'm not black first and then gay and then a Christian and then everything else. And you know, it's the same for people that are like women and black, or women that are black and queer. So we first understand that those intersections exist, and then being able to respect those intersections. So a lot of people be like, oh, you're supposed to be, you know, a man and black and protecting and stuff. And, you know, sometimes I have some feminine characteristics that sometimes come out. Like when I was younger, I used to always hear like, oh, don't talk with your hands and do like, what was it that they used to be like, I guess I used to have a habit of doing this sometimes a lot. And like, oh, don't do that with your hand. I'm like, I'm an artist, so I'm expressed with my body and my words and hands. So sometimes I talk with my hands. And that was early on. That was just my expression with doing things. So a lot of times people will be like, you know, be more masculine. And a lot of straight black men specifically have a problem with talking to gay black men that aren't more masculine presenting, because for some odd reason they think that the more feminine the man is, or feminine presenting, that they're more gay than non-feminine presenting gay black men. So that kind of misconception too. So I found myself a lot of times trying to present myself in a way that sometimes was uncomfortable for me. And really trying to find that balance. It's funny because like barbershops will be one of those places that
I understand.
Like a lot of you really won't find a lot of gay black males being their real authentic selves in barbershops, especially black barbershops, because as soon as we walk in, everybody looking at it.
I will see that this man. You know what I'm saying? So I understand that. So let me ask you this. This is actually a question that I asked China behind the scenes. So there's something that I've actually been brewing on that I want a black gay male's perception on. So as you know, the world keeps going. People gonna keep having kids, stuff like that. Not everybody's gonna be gay. So what would you tell a child that is being advanced by a gay boy? Because keep in mind, this is we'll say elementary school, so they're not really focused on sexuality at that point, but he can tell. You know, what would you say to that little boy with everything that's going on now? Because I'm sure that you know, at the drop, you say anything about a gay person right now, the drop of a hat is up. Like, you know what I'm saying? So what would you tell that little boy that feels uncomfortable about that advance, and he just doesn't want to say anything, or he doesn't want to speak on it because he feels that if he does, everybody's going to just shit on him and just, you know what I'm saying, and like corral him. So what would you say to that little, how would you let him handle that? How would you say for him to handle that?
It's funny because the community doesn't just go up per se when it's just like, oh, you said something about it's really a matter of respect and respectful politics. So for that young man, it would just be as simple as like, hey, just tell your friend, hey, I'm not interested, because on that friend's end, they'll respect that more of just being than you just like parading around it, or then, you know, going to your friends. Because a lot of times kids are mean, and they'll like
and that's why I asked, because like I just didn't know what I would tell my son, like if he's straight or if he's gay, we'll just say that he's straight at this time. But if he's straight and he comes home to me and he's like, yo, Dad, this guy, like he's kind of flirting with me and I don't really feel comfortable with that. I just wouldn't know what to say in that, just because I don't want him to be mean to him, of course, and be like, oh, drop the F word and stuff like that. I don't want him to do that, but I also want you to stand your ground too and let him know, like, yo, I'm not with that. I'm not cool with that. Like, you know what I'm saying? We can be cordial when we can talk, but I don't want to take it to that extent. I'm not like that. Yeah. You know. And as kids, they're not going to be able to because we're adults.
Mm-hmm.
They're not going to be able to put that in such words at that time. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Some kids are more advanced, but we'll say like around like 10 to 12 area, when you like start getting more comfortable with your sexuality, they can't find those type of perfect words to say that.
Yeah.
You know, so that's what that came from, I guess. I would say, like, I just wanted to know exactly what would be suggested to be said.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, the easiest thing is definitely just, I'm a firm believer in words mean things. One of my favorite podcasters, Crystal from The Read, she has a whole book about, and like notebook about how words means things. And so I would say, you know, just tell your son tell him to be like, hey, just tell him, hey, you know, I am not interested in you. You know, I'm not attracted to males, but you know, we could be cool. We could be like, we still friends, but you know, I'm not attracted to males. Because I will say, as a gay black male, sometimes you just want to push a button. I'm not even gonna lie to you. Sometimes you want to look and be like, you know.
I appreciate the honesty, man. I appreciate the honesty.
I'm not gonna lie. I have sometimes pushed the envelope a little bit
just to see. I mean, cause hey, now look, I'm not gonna stunt. There's a lot of down low men.
Yeah.
There's a lot of down low men that's not comfortable with their sexuality, so they don't wanna come out as such because you know you got your tough guys, you know what I'm saying, that want to be that and are comfortable because they know if they come out with that, they lose all that credibility too. Which I feel like that's a stigma too because you can still be gay and whoop ass. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, you know what I mean? So I don't know. I look.
A lot of it is internalized homophobia. So a lot of, because of the way that black people are kind of fed information about the LGBTQ community and people that involve in it, whether it's like religious reasons or just toxic masculinity, which runs rampant in the black community with males. A lot of
I'm working on that myself.
Yeah, and that's growth.
I'm working on that myself, man, because I'm like a manly man, man. So that's why, you know what I'm saying, I want to sit down and have this conversation because seeing it from your point of view. It's a new perspective, you know what I'm saying? It's a new perspective for me. It's new to hear this information. I never actually sat down with someone and had this conversation. So,
and these conversations are important.
Yeah, it's very important to be had because, you know, like you said, there's a lot of misconceptions out here. There's a lot of, just because he's gay, he's going to come over and talk to me. Just because he's gay, he's this, he's that, and the third. And I'm a little bit more mature than that. So I know that there's more to that. And that's what we just trying to cover here, you know what I'm saying? So let me ask you this: How has it been like within your family? Like when you told your family that you were gay?
So funny, radical transparency. My parents did not take it well. I actually didn't get to actually come out and say anything to them. I was on Facebook, and it was right, of course, when Facebook started, and I had met some people in the community, some friends online that I didn't really growing up in Gary. I didn't have any representation of one gay culture, but also black gay culture, which is its own difference within the community. So I found some people that was that I found that were gay and males and were a little older and seeked refuge. I joined a gay family. Which you can essentially put as to clarify.
And what do you mean join the gay family?
So there's in the LGBTQ community you have subsets within the community. So you have the ballroom community. So the easiest example for folks to think about the ballroom community is Pose, or folks have watched Legendary on HBO Max, which is the ballroom community voguing competition. So as that's part of the community. Then you also have, separate from the ballroom community, you also just have gay families. So people that are in the life that have gone through some of the same struggles early on and are looking out for other people in the community, young people in the community that need that refuge and safe space that they might not get at home because of their sexuality. It's an open space for them to come in. You have this family that gets what you're going through and can help you a lot of gay youth end up being homeless for coming out early for their sexuality, especially in the black community. So these families were built and started back in the day to provide that safe refuge for youth and other people as they grow, just to feel that refuge. So I joined the gay family when I was younger, and it helped me out, like at least understanding myself a little bit more, and understanding like some basic early level stages of development of like, watch out for this, you know, especially because as a gay youth, I didn't know what I was doing. I was out on these websites looking and trying to meet people, which was dangerous. Like, molesters and predators and stuff on there.
Crazy ass world we live in.
Yeah, I shouldn't have been on there at all. And so like helping me navigate through that. And so my parents found out. I was talking to one of my gay family members on Facebook, and I had left the computer open. And my mom had went down to the living room and opened up the laptop and saw my Facebook open and was reading through the messages. And then called me down into the family room and was like, "What is this?" Yeah, and I was like, "Oh, I don't know what to say." And then she called my biological father, who was never really close in my life growing up. And I was like, I don't know what that's supposed to do, because I don't talk to him. So what? I don't know why you called him. And it was a lot of emotional trauma that I went through.
So tell me more how you felt like whenever, because I'm sure you didn't feel accepted, you know what I'm saying, with that being said, with everything you just said. So how did that make you feel as a human being? Like, fuck saying being gay, being black, how does it make you feel as a human being whenever the people that you love didn't accept you for who you are, how you want to be, how you are prideful and more comfortable?
So at the time it hurt, of course, and I was bullied for a long time when I was younger too, because I was shorter and didn't look like I just didn't look like much. And so I had already kind of had those feelings that just added on to it. So when I was younger, it really it hurt. I was like, you know, I just want my mama to be happy. I don't get it, because I also, like, I've always been in theater and acting when I was younger. So I was no stranger to putting on costumes and then maybe having to put on like a wig or wearing a certain shoe. And like, it was funny before when I was younger, like before that happened around like 12, 13. So at that time I was like, I don't get it. Like, I was really confused, honestly. Like, for the longest, it was fine for me to be walking around here. I always say Medea was my grandmother. It was fine for me to be walking around the house, you know.
Until you know that. Now all of a sudden.
Now all of a sudden.
What are you doing?
Yeah, and I was like, I was really confused. And a lot of times parents don't understand how their reactions do confuse their children, because you say that you love your child and then all of a sudden they just live a different life or want to live a different life or have an interest in exploring something different. Because oftentimes too, you can explore your sexuality when you're younger, and then you might do it and be like, yeah, okay, that was cool, I tried it, but and then,
it's not for me.
It's not for me. Yeah,
understood.
So a lot of times parents don't understand that, you know, they actually confuse their child by reacting in that way, especially in a negative way. And so for me, it definitely was, I was confused, I was hurt, I didn't know what was going on. I definitely had suicidal thoughts for a long time too. I ran away from home a couple times because it just got like unbearable. Like, we tried to go to therapy, and then there was a point where I didn't realize it when I was younger until I got older and got more into like diversity, ethnic inclusion work and more work in the community, that I realized at a certain point I had gotten put into conversion therapy, and at the time I didn't know what that was. And for folks that don't know, conversion therapy is it is therapy per se, but it is therapy to convert somebody from a certain belief. So in my case, trying to be converted from homosexuality to heterosexuality.
Yeah, understood. Damn, I didn't even know there was places like that.
Yeah,
wow.
And it's crazy. They're actually quite illegal, and conversion therapy is illegal in a lot of states, but in certain states like Indiana, it is.
Can you share something like what you experienced in there? Like, what is it like being in conversion therapy?
So you don't really realize that you're in conversion therapy because the person is talking to you just like a normal therapist. They're just trying try to become your friend and understand,
try to pick you apart.
Yeah, try to pick you apart. And usually parents put their children through it when they showing signs of maybe being in the community to try to eradicate it and get rid of it. And so I remember it was a older white man that was my therapist, and he would like ask me questions like, well, how do you know that you like this, and have you ever had this experience? And of course, being young, I had some sexual experiences, but I didn't want to share that with them. Even at a young age, understanding like, confidentiality, you really can't say anything, but this is also your job. So like, it was a lot of questions.
He's trying to prowl.
Man. And then it turned to like a group session where then it was like me and then these other queer kids, and they were like, okay, well, let's talk about, being straight and the benefits and joys of, male to female intercourse. And I'm like, I don't want to learn none of this. Like, it's funny because I used to, I remember Googling at one point, like, I think my mom was trying to like get me into hypnosis or some shit. So I remember Googling like how to block hypnosis in therapy sessions so that I would be hypnotized into being somebody that I wasn't. I was like, this is crazy. I didn't know what it was at the time, but it was like, I knew it wasn't right and not something I needed to be involved in. And eventually I got out of it and was like, listen, I'm not going to that man no more. You gonna have to do something else. And then we tried to work through it. Like 8th grade was, my mom would call it the year from hell. That's when I started, I guess, smelling myself and getting more, like, get confident. And like,
I am who I am now.
I was starting to meet, like, as you get older, you start to maybe find other kids and stuff, too, that might identify the same as you. And you form them bonds. That was when I started trying to push that envelope a little bit, too, because I was still, at the time, like, really cool with a lot of my straight friends that was guys. And they, would do like, they would joke and like joke on me a little bit, but then they'd also be cool. So I'm like, I don't know what y'all doing, but let me just try and see what's going on. Some of them it worked, some of them it didn't. They was like, nah, bro, we cool. And I was like, all right, cool. And then the other ones, it worked. And I was like, all right, your secret's safe for me, cool, But yeah, it was interesting growing up and like going through that, and then again having to unlearn all those behaviors and that trauma and heal from that I went through. Yeah, it was a lot. It was a very long process.
It's hard. It's hard already being a black man.
Yeah,
being a gay black man. Look, I'm a straight black man, so it took a minute. I ain't like it took a minute for me to get comfortable in like how I am now, like how I can have a conversation. Like about 2-3 years ago, I wasn't able to do that because I'm like, wait a minute, like this nigga is gay. Like what are we doing here? Like, you know what I mean? But it took time for me to realize that gay people are people as well. Y'all still black as hell. Like that don't, you know what I'm saying? Shit, you get put over by the police, your heart's still thumping.
Yeah, like they still gonna look at me being a black man.
So they're not gonna give a fuck about you being gay. So I understand you do community work. You know what I'm saying, within the community and stuff like that. You gonna touch base on that?
Yeah, so I do a lot in the community. So I am currently the vice president for Indiana Pride of Color, which is the Pride of Color organization for the state of Indiana. So we advocate for the intersectionalities and affirmations of all queer people of color within the state of Indiana. So Asian American, Latinx, Black, any person of color that identifies within the queer community. We are the sole organization that does programming and advocacy work for them. I just finished a term earlier this summer. I was vice president of community relations for Indy Pride. So with Indy Pride, my charge was to really bridge the gap between queer people of color and the queer community here in the city. Because a lot of times people think, oh, you're in the LGBTQ community, so that's it, that's the whole community. But like I mentioned earlier, there are subsets and really sometimes discrimination faced being in a queer community. Like a lot of times, queer people of color and Black people specifically are usually fetishized by other people in the community. Like, it's fine to be Black and gay as long as you out here providing all these wonderful sexual acts for these people, but then as soon as you're trying to advocate for, you to be in a space and be comfortable, it's like, oh, well, this is a queer space. It's open to everybody. Yeah, but I still need a dedicated space for my black gayness because it's different than, the black queer experience is different than the white queer experience.
Absolutely. Like I said, but it's already hard being black.
Yeah.
Being a black man, being a gay black man got to be doubled hard.
Yeah, it is. It's like you're being, oftentimes say that to be a black gay man, you're being ostracized in the black community as well as in the gay community or in the queer community. And so, trying to navigate between your intersections and learn where your safe spaces are within both of your communities, and then finding your tribe and village and people within those safe spaces. It's a journey, and it's a journey that you really don't really stop ever having, like as you continue to get older, like as you move, go up in your professions and career, you kind of always still have to navigate through these spaces. And it's hard. Sometimes people cannot be their authentic selves in these spaces because of the systemic barriers that are placed in front of them. And so they have to code switch to try to fit this persona that is acceptable to the space and environment that they're in. So I do a lot of work to try to help mitigate those spaces and help people navigate through those spaces and become authentically them and feel comfortable with being themselves.
Okay, so let me ask you this. So what... There's a 10-year-old kid struggling with his sexuality. He really wants to come out, but he just does not, and he has the same situation as you. His family's not going to really support that, etc. So his back's against the wall. What do you tell him to make him more comfortable with being himself?
As a 10-year-old, I would say,
10 to 12.
Yeah.
Like whenever you start, you know what I mean?
For youth in general, I'd say, really focus on yourself and learning yourself and making sure that you are... I had a bad habit when I was younger of feeling like people pleasing. Like I just felt like to get people to like me and accept me, I had to go all out the way to do everything that was making myself tired. And I was overextending myself to make other people try to accept me in their space. But to really, don't think about people pleasing, continue on your own journey, work on yourself and development of yourself. If you're in school, focus on your schoolwork, really don't focus on people as youth because they're not going to do anything to distract you. And sometimes they can set you on a path that's not really the path that's for you. I didn't really find my path until college, until I left out the house and moved to Indy for college.
Went to the outside world.
It was like, oh, it's a whole new world. Like it's
a big world out there.
Yeah, man. And so and even then, like my first 2 years of college, I still was like, I was had this freedom, so I was still making some of the wrong decisions. That have still had like their lasting effects now, but like I'm appreciative of going through those things because they made me into the person.
Yeah, absolutely, mistakes always. Mistakes always. There's a reason you make a mistake. Yeah, you know what I'm saying? Because if you don't make that mistake, you're not gonna learn from that mistake. You know what I'm saying? So everybody does that, man. So I guess I would have to ask next. What's the goal from here? Like what? So you're a vice president for the community. What is y'all goals for like future? Like what are y'all trying to accomplish? I would say.
So
we're socially accepted right now. Yeah. Everybody knows. You know what I'm saying? There's a whole community out there. So what are y'all next steps into y'all organization or your community or what's coming up next?
So I would say that we're actually still fighting sometimes for that social acceptance. So advocacy right now is our biggest area of focus right now. So we've been really like grounds work into the community. And really, we pride ourselves on not reinventing the wheel. So if we know that there are there's another pride organization or somebody in the community that's doing something, let's figure out how we can help them and assist them and get them the resources that they need to pull off what it is that they're trying to pull off or assist them in the best way that they can. Being a small grassroots organization, and we're still in the groundwork of getting things up. Like we're primarily focused right now on expanding our board, getting more people on our board of directors and our advisory board before we start really focusing on programming per se. Because I think a lot of people look at organizations like, oh, what events are y'all doing and doing things like, yeah, events are cool, but one, events cost money. And grants are out there, but they are not easy to get. But really, we want to be intentional about what we put out there and the quality of what's out there. So really being intentional about helping people first before putting on programs and events just to say that we put on this event. So we do a lot of work with, in collaboration with Brothers United BU Wellness Network, which is the, if I'm not mistaken, only Black African American led HIV and STI wellness organization, health organization in the city. So we do a lot of work with there, navigating people like trying to get testing, sending them over there and collaborating on different things. We also work closely with Indiana Youth Group, which is a youth organization that really helps homeless and troubled LGBTQ youth within the city. They help them provide shelter. They do different programs for them, mentorship, clothes if they need it, because a lot of times, like I mentioned, youth, they usually end up homeless or don't know where to go for those resources. And so Indiana Youth Group was founded to provide those resources to youth within the city. So helping youth get to IYG, making sure they understand, what the programs are, getting them enrolled in programs or connecting them with the people to get them enrolled in programs at the organization. And then just collaborating with our other pride organizations in the city right now is our focus, to really uplift them and get them to make sure that they're also not only serving just the community, but also focusing on their queer people of color within the community too, who are more disproportionately affected by some of the troubles that sometimes happen becoming a queer person.
So what would you tell our minority parents that's dealing with, like, because you know early, like, even because I actually have a little cousin that he just came out gay a few years ago, but I've known him since he was little, so I knew, you know what I'm saying. So parents that are dealing with that don't know, I guess, how to get comfortable or deal with the fact that their son may be gay. What do you say to those parents? Like, what is your suggestions for them to get more comfortable in what's about to transpire?
Yeah. My first suggestion is for them to contact Indiana Youth Group, because Indiana Youth Group also provides services for parents and resources groups for parents of queer children that do need help navigating those conversations and understanding what it is that their children are going through, children or child is going through.
That's a heavy conversation.
It's a heavy conversation, yeah.
Some parents just don't know. Like, it's not that they don't accept it. They just they ain't come up like that. So it's hard whenever your son is gay. You just don't know what to say to him. Like, what do you say to make him comfortable? Besides, I love you, because I mean, you're gonna, of course I love you, but there's a whole, like you say, people are mean, bro. Yeah. There's a whole evil world out there. Yeah. So continue.
So I would first tell them to contact Indiana Youth Group, because they absolutely have those parent resources and resource groups to help folks and have like different information that they can provide them. The next thing I would say is that Google is free and the internet is out here free. Learning how to use and research different articles. There are plenty of articles for parents and resources and resource groups for parents of queer children to understand, because a lot of people don't understand sometimes also all the intersections within the community. So like, you might have a child that is Black and gay, or a child that might say, I don't really feel like I identify as a boy or a girl, and they might, be on a journey to becoming gender non-conforming or non-binary. And so a lot of people, or trans for that fact, so a lot of people don't know exactly how to navigate those conversations, but there are plenty of resources, especially now. The Human Rights Campaign has resources online. You can reach out to Indiana Pride of Color or Indy Pride. A lot of the pride organizations within the city have resources or connections to parents, and not just within this state, but in a lot of states. Honestly, there is at least one pride organization usually that they can at least find out and reach out to, and they can connect them with other things. I'd also say, reading is the most important. There's a book that I actually have my mom read by George M. Johnson, who is a non-binary Black author. who wrote a book called All Boys Aren't Blue. And I saw it just one day in Target and was like, oh, this is amazing, because all boys aren't blue. And it's like, when you think about that title, it's like baby showers and gender reveals. Everybody want to be like, oh, is it a boy or is it a girl, blue or pink? And, all boys aren't blue, all girls aren't pink sometimes. So, that book really, George talks about their, journey as just learning about their sexuality and themselves. And they use they, them pronouns. To really just find themselves and be more comfortable with themselves and come to a place of acceptance within themselves. And then, once you come to that place, usually within acceptance of yourself and loving yourself, you don't really care about what anybody else thinks. Like, sometimes, the words still hurt and the things still hurt, but, you still, a lot of times when you get to that good foundation, it's like, I'm living my life for myself, so I care less what anybody else say about me.
So, pronouns. How would a gay person better want to be addressed? Like, what are the do's and don'ts? What pisses you off? Like, you know what I'm saying? I want to know all that.
So it really varies from person to person. So pronouns really come into play with how a person identifies. So again, that intersectionality piece. So like, I identify as a gay black male, and so my pronouns I identify with are he, him pronouns.
Okay.
But you have some people that are people that are non-binary or non-gender conforming. They usually will identify with they, them pronouns. And then women presenting and identifying individuals will usually use she, her pronouns. Or you might have some people that they use he, they, or he, him, they, or she, her, they, and it just really depends on the person of how they identify, because somebody could be masculine presenting and in one just like on the outside, but they might identify as she, her pronouns or they, them pronouns. So George Johnson is a perfect example of that, the author of the book I was mentioning, because they to somebody just looking at them, they were probably like, oh, George identifies as, they would probably misgender him or say, oh, hey, what's up, bro? Or him, and of course you go through that life and people misgender sometimes on accident, but it's as simple as that person or the person, if you don't know, just asking, hey, how do you identify? And then for those people that do identify different than somebody, how somebody addresses them, just correcting them like, hey, you said, bro, I just want to let you know, like, I actually don't identify with male pronouns, so, these are my preferred pronouns and the pronouns that I identify with, and I would appreciate if, you addressed me with these pronouns. And it's really as simple as the person respecting them and them as a person, and that's how they choose to identify, and not misgendering them purposely, because that's when it gets real disrespectful. And when you find a lot of those, like when the community is going up, it's because somebody's like, hey, now I told you that that's not how I identify, and you still out here saying calling me her, and I'm like, that's not how I identify. So, a lot of it is really just being respectful and really asking folks, especially if you don't know, because people will be like, oh, well, I don't know what to say to that person, or, I don't know if it's a man or a woman, and I'm like, it's really simple. A lot of people overthink it. It's like, just ask them how they identify. It's a lot of people don't know how to actually ask that question, but
because it's some people that just don't want to offend.
Yeah.
They don't want to they don't know how to like you just said. Hell, some people don't even know that everybody identifies a different pronoun.
Yeah.
I just learned that. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So that is something that I would have never thought to even ask.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? I just usually just kind of try to assume, and that's me being a straight male that I'm trying to change about myself.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? But every time I see like a gay person, I automatically assume what I assume.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And the pronouns being used, you just taught me something, because I didn't know that there was different types of pronouns that need to be used. They can be mixed up however they want to mix it up and stuff like that. So, that'd be good information to have too.
Yeah.
So let me ask you this: What are your thoughts on the gay agenda?
It don't exist. It does not exist.
It doesn't exist,
No.
man. You gotta give me more than that.
It does not exist.
It's crazy because you know you're on social media, I'm sure. Mm-hmm. So you see that people are starting to combat. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. Gay people because they feel they're pushing the gay agenda because it's in our TV shows, it's in. They're starting to sprinkle it in kids shows. It's all over social media. So what do you say to people that feel that are pushing back because of that gay agenda?
Yeah. First, I would say I want to just make a point to say it's not really just a gay agenda. People are really getting upset about the queer agenda as a whole. So like the whole umbrella, not just like gay people, but also lesbians, trans people, bisexual people. It's like they think that now all of a sudden, like, oh, it's okay. People are like, oh, it's okay, we accept you, we just don't want to see it. That's crazy because we see heteronormity on TV shows and everything all the time. All it is representation. I just saw Eternals yesterday, and I know that there was a big backlash of folks in like countries banning the movie because there was a scene in the movie where one of the main characters is gay. It's a gay black man, and he kisses his partner before he leaves off to go to battle, and there was huge backlash about that. And they have a family, and like it was beautiful. For me, looking at it, I was like, this representation is beautiful.
Yeah.
And it's also not, a lot of times people too, and representation is important because a lot of people think, oh, well, you got a couple, there's this more feminine presenting or flamboyant, gay man in this show, so they go, representation, but that's not representative of everybody within this culture,
Because not all gay men are flamboyant.
Yeah,
there's like some manly men, gay dudes, what I'm saying? So I agree with that.
Yeah, so, there's a lot of people that think that, because we are advocating more to see more representation in the media because there are more kids, there are more people that are exploring their sexualities and really trying to figure out, what it is that they like in this life. And if you don't have examples to see what it is that, what you're thinking about that you're interested in, you don't know. And sometimes that can lead you down a path of just mischief and just wrong people being introduced and being around the wrong people because you think that because you see something one way that's how it's supposed to be, but you need multiple levels of representation so that you can really get
I had my reservations about it too at first because I'm like, damn, you know what I'm saying? Like, they're starting to put it in cartoons and stuff now, so for a kid, you know what I'm saying, that's straight, that's gonna look at that and be like, wait a minute, that's, my mommy and daddy told me, like, that's weird, you know what I'm saying? They're taught that that's weird. But on the same token, I don't know if you've seen it, but there's this little, there's a movie on Netflix of these little girls in a damn twerk team, and that's acceptable. Like that's
seen that, but
that's where I don't know what the movie is called. I don't know what the movie is called, but even like on the artwork, they bent over and stuff like that, and these gotta be like little 12-year-old kids.
I think I do remember seeing like a preview of people talk about this.
So I'm sitting there just like, wait a minute, y'all mad that two grown ass men are kids? They over 18, but these little girls is twerking.
Yeah,
they made a whole movie about these little girls is all the pedophilia that's going on around here. Yeah, I worry about this. See, that's where I kind of fall off at, because like I said, I had my reservations about it at first, but I be thinking like, there's way worse shit that's out there.
All people always, and I would say straight people that identify as heterosexual, always want to throw the kids into it. As soon as something from the queer community comes up, it's like, oh, what about the kids? And it's like, you were a kid. We was watching Love and Basketball.
That's what I came to too. That's what I came to because there is nothing that a gay man could say to me that's going to make me turn gay.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? There's nothing that I could watch. There's nothing that I can see that's going to be like, yo, all right, shit, this is it. I'm going to start fucking with niggas. Like, there's nothing so that's where I started, you know what I'm saying, started easing back off that. Like, okay, you know what I'm saying? If they do put it in cartoons and stuff like that, and the child, is intrigued by that, maybe that's just...
Yeah. And I mean, really all it is learning, because also the only way that you can become more socially accepted of you know, different people and their different cultures, because it's really not just limited to the queer community. It's also like Latinx culture. Black people don't really understand Latinx culture. So if I'm looking at a cartoon and there's some Latinx people in it and they're having dinner and I'm like, oh, so this is a traditional Latinx dinner. This is what it looks like in a Latinx household, you know. But they're like, those people are looking for representation of their cultures, because it's important to see people that look like you growing up, because those are the people that you look up to and aspire to. I didn't have a gay black figure that I really like looked up to growing up. I didn't know any, because that's also not taught in schools. You don't learn about queer history and queer culture, or how pride came to be in existence, or like why all these things, where these terms come from. So you have to, as a queer person, you have to learn those things usually when you get older, because that's when you have the access to those resources. But if people and children had access to those resources early on, then that makes the fight a little bit easier for it to become more accepted and for people to be more comfortable with having these conversations, and being in the same spaces and mixed spaces and having friends and like having that open dialogue, like, you know, I want to understand more so that I am not a part of the problem. Because people that do say, you know, oh, well, that shouldn't be, the kids don't need to be watching that, and, you know, like, the children aren't even learning cursive anymore. I just asked somewhere the other day, like, how are children signing things nowadays? Like, they're not even learning cursive anymore. Like, what is it that you want your child to learn so badly that you are, or not learn, that you are hindering them from being a more socially acceptable person out in life? Because those people that don't have these conversations, open dialogue, they don't know, and they won't know, and they rather stay ignorant with not knowing, because they're so prideful in their beliefs, because they just don't want to accept it, than, you know, being more open to having a conversation, because they're scared of what somebody's going to think about them for talking to somebody that's, you know, in the queer community. Or even, you know, when it comes to prejudices, you know, sometimes like people don't want to hang out with folks that are Latinx, you know, because they're like, oh, you know, there's racial prejudice within family, or, you know, folks say stuff and they like say it in a joking way, but they don't really understand.
There's always a little truth under jokes, man.
There, you know,
there's always a little bit of, you know.
I say two things can be true at the same time, you know, but sometimes those jokes can be harmful to folks, and, you know, depending on what's said, and, you know, if you don't have those people that you can have those conversations with, I don't want to mention it, but quickly, Dave Chappelle. I knew that was going to come at some point in the conversation. It had to, man. You know, Dave does not have a black trans friend. He couldn't have black trans friends, because if he did have black trans friends, he would understand that some of the things that all the things that he said in that special were offensive. And like, yeah, you know, some people might be like, oh, well, it didn't offend me, but that one person is not representative of the whole community. I'm not representative of the whole community. How I feel and how I believe is not representative of the community. So you might talk to another queer black male that had a different experience than me, that, you know, they might have different feelings. So, you know, really having these open conversations and dialogues and putting yourself in spaces where you can meet these people and have these conversations, that's the easiest way to get things done.
Because that's interesting to know, because I peeked a little bit of the special, and I didn't, you know what I'm saying, I ain't really see nothing wrong with that first, because Dave Chappelle does that. But at the same time, I can see how it was offensive to the community. You know what I'm saying? That's blatant, you know what I'm saying? So I guess it would be just based off of who you talk to, right?
Yeah, it's based off of who you talk to, and then when it comes to that specifically, you know, trans people specifically are really tired of being at the butt of the jokes, like, because they are usually the people that are most ostracized within the community. People tend to just like, well, I don't understand transness, so I don't like it, but I'll be fine with, you know, having a gay friend. But as soon as you say, oh, I'm trans, or identify as, you know, trans male, trans female, they're like, oh, I don't know what that means. You just, you know, you look like a man, so you a man. It's like, no, you can't make jokes about that to people, because like that's their life, and that process of, you know, acceptance and loving somebody's self and being comfortable enough to be like, listen, I know how I was born, but this is not how I identify, this is not how I feel as a person. You have to respect that, and that's really all they want, and all we want at the end of the day is respect. Like, yeah, you can make a joke about something without having it be, you know, offensive to people in the community. Highlight something else within your joke that's not also being offensive to people.
Because the main thing that I actually agree with Dave Chappelle, which I got a question for you to touch on, like for instance, the Boondocks.
Mm-hmm.
You can say nigga on that motherfucker all day long, but you cannot say the F word.
Mm-hmm.
What's your opinion on that? How is that deemed fair? I would guess, you know what I'm saying, because that's a lot of the uproar too. Because as soon as you, like I said, as soon as you say anything bad about from the straight perspective, as soon as you say something bad about a gay person, it erupts.
Mm-hmm.
But they can talk about black people all day. They can say nigga,
Mm-hmm.
but they can't say the F word.
So a lot of that comes into that play about intersectionality that I mentioned before too,
Mm-hmm.
where it's like, you know, being black and queer, you sometimes have to fight between, you know, getting acceptance within the queer community and getting acceptance in the black community. You know, again, like, you know, I'm a black gay man, but my blackness does not come before my gayness, and my gayness does not come from my blackness. They are all one and the same.
Yeah, so you are.
So, you know, like, I personally, I the F word, I don't play that. So, like, you know, but nigga, I'm black. So, like, I can say that. But if, you know, if I see a white person thinking they're about to say nigga,
right.
that nah, fam, you
So
can't say that.
All kinda,
But, you know, and for the Boondocks specifically, you know, like, no, they can't say the F word because neither one of them was gay. But even if they were, it's still a derogatory term. I think, you know, nigga's weird because you have some black people that be like, they don't use it because of the connotations before it. And then, you know, you have some people that be like, well, I can say it because I'm black and I can say it to my friend. But, you know, some people, it's just indifferent. So it kind of depends on the person when it comes to nigga. With that F word, no, we don't play that.
It's just a rap on that.
Yeah, no, that'll be the easiest way for you to set something off, and you know, but again, you know, like when nigga, like I said, it's like if you black and you know, and you know, for me personally, I don't mind the word because I use it, you know.
So I'm sure that you guys use the F word like within the community. Do y'all use the F word within the community? Like, do you call like people, how we call each other my nigga? You know what I'm saying? Do y'all call each other my? No. No.
So like some people will use it, and I mean really it still has a derogatory meaning and term within the community, even from people that use it, because usually it's also used as a slur.
So even if a gay person calls another gay person the F word, it's still okay.
Like like some people have like don't have a strong reservations about it, so they'll like call other folks that word and be like, and they'll
I've heard of that before. I've heard of like gay people like calling each other that word amongst each other as like a form of nigga. Like,
so that's usually rooted in some form of internalized homophobia. Okay. Just like you have internalized racism, internalized misogyny, like it's internalized homophobia. Mm-hmm. So a lot of times people that use that word, they are still somewhere in their brain, still like reaching and living in this heteronormative space because that's what they were used to and usually grew up in. That's the culture that most of us grew up in, because you don't see the black gay culture until you're usually older. And so they still use that word because they were either called it or it's something that they know, like if I use this, it's going to hurt somebody's feelings, or, you know, it's going to mean a certain thing, so I can use this. Mm-hmm. And, you know, I'm going to feel okay about it, but it's because they've internalized in themselves that it's okay to use because it's been used as a slur against them. Mm-hmm. And it was just accepted and they couldn't do anything about it. So internally they've accepted that I can use this too because, you know, ain't nobody gonna do nothing about it because it was used on me, so ain't nobody gonna whip my ass about it. And if I'm gonna use it, and they'll use it in the friend groups, but me and my friend group, we don't play that because
no. I understand.
Yeah.
That was a good conversation, my brother. I appreciate you coming
Absolutely.
by, kicking it with me. Go ahead, kill it. And that's a cut.